Want to remind you again, Thursday, we're going to have a Zoom review. Your time is 11 o'clock. That's a review for the test. So once again, please, if you have any questions regarding your notes or the things you've seen or heard in the YouTube videos, please keep them in mind or write them down so you can ask me. Tests. I still got most of the tests. I'm still missing a few. We have sent out communications today regarding that. So please get your tests into me if you have not. If there's anything going on that would cause you a delay in this, please communicate that to me, or have your parents communicate that to me, sending me an email. So please keep all that in mind. All right, moving forward, we're going to end out this section today. And yesterday we ended by talking about the assassination of the Archduke Francis Ferdinand. He was the heir to the Austria-Hungarian Emperor Francis Joseph. It was his nephew, his wife. The Archduke and his wife were both assassinated. And we talked about the plot. The members of the Black Hand, a nationalist group based in Serbia, and Austria-Hungary, their leaders, they held the Serbians responsible, and they were encouraged by the German allies. They backed Austria-Hungary on this. The German Emperor William II assured Austria-Hungary that they would give them its full support to any actions they may want to take against Serbia for this. So we get into the declaration of war. July 23rd, Austria-Hungary gave Serbia an ultimatum demanding that Austro-Hungarian officials be allowed into Serbia to suppress all subversive movements and to investigate the Archduke's murder. The Serbians rejected this. It was really something they couldn't accept. And Austria-Hungary, their leaders knew that, or had a pretty good idea they wouldn't accept that. Although Serbia was certainly trying to avoid war, it was just an ultimatum that they could not go along with. And the term ultimatum, you didn't even know what that is. I did put it in your notes. It's a set of final conditions that must be accepted to avoid severe consequences. So on July the 28th, a month after the assassination of 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. And both countries immediately issued orders for mobilization. And that term is right there in your notes. The gathering and transport of military troops and fighting equipment in preparation for war. So they're getting ready, rapidly prepared for wartime. Now this is where a lot of the alliances come into play. In agreements that we talked about yesterday. July 30th, Russia backed Serbia. And Tsar Nicholas II ordered a general mobilization of the Russian armed forces. Just getting prepared, for war. So August the 1st, Germany in turn declares war on Russia. August the 3rd, Germany declares war on France. Remember, France and Russia, they were part of an entente, an agreement. The British were still undecided. However, when the Germans invaded through Belgium on August 3rd, they violated a treaty from all the way back to 1839 that Great Britain and Belgium had signed, and this prompted Great Britain to declare war on Germany on August the 4th. That wasn't even all the different alliances, but that's the ones that we listed in your notes. And all sides were confident of a quick victory at the beginning of the war in 1914. A quick end to this. Obviously, that did not happen. It becomes an incredibly long, drawn-out, bloody war. Some of the strategies at the beginning, the Schlieffen Plan, you'll need to know that. It was a war strategy drawn up by a German general, Alfred von Schlieffen. Believed that the Germans could get to Paris and defeat France in 6 weeks. Part of it was invading through Belgium, and they thought they could do this quickly. And the key to that was if they could get to it quickly and get it done quickly, they could send their troops east to fight on the Eastern Front and deal with the Russians, who von Schlieffen thought would be slow to mobilize. Okay, so that's very critical. You need to know one of the downsides for Germany in this is fighting a two-front war. They had enemies to their western front, enemies on the eastern front. They thought they could once again take care of France in 6 weeks or so, and then send the troops back east before the Russians could really be prepared to be prepared for war. So that was a large problem for Germans. You need to know that. The problems with the Schlieffen Plan was that the Germans faced heavier resistance than expected from the French at the start of this, and Russia mobilized quicker than expected. So when they could not take Paris as quickly as they believed, and then they couldn't, they wound up having to, send troops back east to deal with the Russians. This sort of really, got the von Schlieffen Plan. This started falling apart on them. One of the early battles that listed there was the Battle of the Marne. September 5th, French and German troops fought in northeastern France. And after 4 days, the Germans were pushed back to around 50 miles from Paris. This attack saved Paris. The Germans were driving toward Paris. They just didn't get there as quickly, as easily as they thought. And it also boosted morale for the people. And this victory really caused the Germans to abandon the von Schlieffen Plan. And we'll talk more about the battles of World War I in our next section. But quickly, I'm going to mention some of the early battles with Russia. The heading in your book and in your notes is a Russian disaster. At the end of August, Russian and German troops met at Tannenberg. This is in present-day Poland. The Germans wound up encircling the Russians and destroyed them. And it was a blowout victory, basically. The Germans killed more than 30,000 Russian soldiers and took 92,000 prisoners. And the Germans only suffered around 13,000 casualties. That's a pretty disastrous start for Russia, although they were, at least, if nothing else, they were occupying German troops that otherwise would have been on the Western Front, trying to push on Paris. So, but you'll need that's the one thing in this section, Tannenberg, the early battles with the Russians. One of the things that we'll talk about in the upcoming sections, some of the machinery we'll see in this war. We'll talk about tanks, but just the weaponry really changed comparatively, let's just say, to warfare of the 19th century. And that's where you really see the difference in casualties, which become massive because of so many sides involved in this. And we'll be going over that as well in the coming days. So the final section of this was fairly short to where we're stopping on, and you should have the notes on that. And we're going to test on these sections once again on Friday, so you'll be ready for that. You can take it on Friday. You'll have till Sunday to actually get the test back to me. So I'm going to stop there. Once again, think of any questions you may have regarding your notes. And we'll talk during the Zoom meeting on Thursday. Your time is 11 o'clock, and I'll see you then.